So thanks everybody for being here. Today, in navigating the spirit world, I'm going to be sharing an introduction, a basic introduction to shamanic spirit medicine, and to how we use shamanic healing, shamanic journey work to help re-script ourselves in order to live a higher functioning and more empowered life. And then eventually how we use those same techniques to help others, to heal themselves, and how we can use those techniques to step into our roles as caretakers and custodians, guardians of the web of life, to help shift consciousness so that we as humanity become caretakers of the web of life and inspire others to do the same. So I want to talk first about dreaming and the shamanic journey. When a number of years ago, when my daughter was in 4th grade, she was still a little kid, 10 years old, and the teacher invited me to come in and to teach shamanism to the class, to teach shamanic journeying to this group of 4th graders. It was great. They were very open. There was one little girl who had a hard time journeying and then eventually found her penguin power animal, and it was really empowering for all of them to learn how to get in touch with their spirit minds. And so I said, sure, of course, I'll be happy to do that. And then I reviewed my course notes, which were written for adults. And I thought to myself, oh boy, I've got to rewrite this for kids. How am I going to do that? And what I realized was I needed to find an experience that everybody could relate to. Every single person could relate to. And that experience is dreaming. Everybody has had a dream. All of us has had a dream. And like shamanic journeying, it's very hard to explain what dreaming is, or it would be very hard to explain what dreaming is if we were to try to explain it to somebody who had never had a dream before. In other words, if I was to say, I was dreaming and then all of a sudden I left my home in Hawaii and I was eating pizza in New York, and the next thing I know, I was at this wonderful hot spring in Japan at an onsen, and then I was in the Amazon jungle. And then I woke up and then I was back in my bed and it all happened in 10 minutes. People would be like, you couldn't do that if they didn't have a basis of what a dream was, right? You can't do that. But of course, in your dreams, you can. And so that's what happens in our shamanic journeys. We're able to travel in the spirit world and move our awareness outside of our physical body, outside of physical space and time. That makes sense to everybody? Yeah. Okay. So when the body sleeps and the mind travels through the spirit world without constraints of the physical body, we call this experience dreaming. That's without shamanic journeying, just regular dreaming. Lucid dreaming is when the dreamer knows that they are dreaming. So it's the experience of knowing that we are dreaming while we are dreaming. And I'm trusting that a number of you have had that experience of being in a dream and then becoming aware while you're dreaming that, oh, wow, I'm dreaming. That's a lucid dream. Some people can control their actions within their dreams. They can command themselves to look at their hands or to fly or to visit a friend. Shamans call this ability commanding the dreaming attention. We can also learn to command our dreaming attention in a fully waking state by learning how to travel in the dream time as a shaman. And we call that skill shamanic journeying. So the dream time is a word that's used by Aboriginal people in Australia to describe the experience of consciously traveling in the spirit world without the constraints of the physical body. The ability to enter the dream time is common to all human beings. This is something we can all do. Okay, we all have the ability to do this. And it can be cultivated with mindful practice. So not only is it something we can all do, but when we practice it, we get better at it, just kind of like math, except it's using a different part of the brain. When pursued with clear intent, Dreamtime's experiences lose their seemingly random and at times intrusive nature and become more powerful sources of profound healing. And what I mean is that by saying that, is that if we regularly pursue moving into the dreamtime state and shamanic journeying for purposes of healing and personal growth or helping others, just talk about ourselves right now, just healing and personal growth, self-healing and personal growth, then the urgency of the spirit world to contact us randomly in our days day-to-day life, or to poke in our dreams in a profound way, becomes reduced because we're getting the messages already. We're already getting the messages. We're being proactive about it. We're saying, what message does spirit have for me? What do I need to know today in order to pursue my personal growth, my healing, my spiritual development? That makes sense to everybody. So we can be proactive with this and we can learn it. Okay. And traditionally, in a spiritually advanced society, every member of that society had that ability, but not every member of that society was a medicine person. Okay. Because if you're living in a tribal group of, let's say, 40, 60, 80 people in a band, in a clan group, okay, you can't have 40 or 60 shaman, because someone's got to hunt, someone's got to look after the kids, someone's got to build the houses, someone's got to gather the berries and the tubers, and there's all sorts of stuff to do day by day. So traditionally, you would, if you were in that situation, living in a group like that, in a clan group, the two or three or one, two or three, depending on the size of the clan group, people who showed the most adeptness and natural gifts in this realm of the spirit world would become and be trained to become the medicine people. But that didn't mean that other people didn't also have that techniques, whether they were hunters or warriors or moms or people around the fire or gatherers or builders in the tribe. They all knew this stuff. Okay, so this is what we're trying to do, is to bring back this awareness to our society, to our present day modern society, so that we can function more in harmony with ourselves as a community and with Mother Earth around us, to live in right relationship with the earth around us and the world around us, with Mother Nature. So what's a shaman exactly? A shaman is someone who uses the dream time to journey to non-physical worlds in an altered state of consciousness, and then returns to normal waking consciousness at will. And this part about returning at will to normal waking consciousness is extremely important. Okay? We must be able to not just journey, but also to return. Okay? If we're out there in an altered state of consciousness all the time, that's not shamanism. That's something else. It could be schizophrenia. It could be another psychological disorder. It could be drug use. It could be split personalities. It could be possession. It is most definitely not shamanism. Shamanism is an empowered state of ability to be able to switch back and forth between different states of perception, different levels of consciousness on a day-to-day basis, a moment-to-moment basis. Okay. And the way we do that is by learning how to change our brainwave state consciously. So meditations, which is common throughout all cultures, all religions, some have some form of meditation, whether it's walking and moving meditation or seated meditation or standing meditation or lying down meditation. Okay, all these different forms of meditation are used to quiet the mind, to help to prepare the mind to enter into a state of spiritual perception. Unfortunately, as we have complicated things more and more in modern life, we've lost sight of what the actual use and goal of meditation is, and it's become an end in of itself. And sure, it's great for stress relief and to relax, but there's something else that's beyond simple meditation. Okay. It's a preparation that allows us to switch into a different brainwave state and to travel in the spirit world. Okay. To enter the dream time. And this is silencing the thinking mind or quieting the internal dialogue. Okay. Once that happens, that's a signal that we're starting to down cycle back into theta wave state that is going to allow us to access the spirit world more effectively. A shaman intermediates with the spirit world in pursuit of life-affirming purposes. And life-affirming purposes is also important. Shamans form collaborative relationships with benevolent spirits to help maintain the health balance within themselves, their community, and between their community and the web of life. Okay? It's a collaborative relationship with benevolent spirits for life-affirming purposes. There's a lot of stuff out there, and it's been around forever, but it's more prominent or more advertised today because of social media and all that stuff. You can look online on Facebook or just on Google, and you'll see many people offering spells, right? And they're offering these spells to find the love of your life or get rich, or this is not life-affirming purposes. Okay, that's manipulative purposes. Now, okay, finding the love of your life, maybe that's, marginally manipulative, but anything that interferes with somebody else's free will is not okay. There also are darker aspects of that that are more parasitic. Okay, yes, we are going to find manifest abundance when we provide services to people that are helpful. Yes, the universe will actually support us when we're bringing good things into the world, 100%. Okay. However, if we're casting spells to attract money, that might not actually do it. Okay. There's other ways to work to get your needs met. So life-affirming purposes. This is important that we keep our focus on what is right relationship here, what is collaborative, what is not a selfish purpose, but a life-affirming purpose. Okay. So shamans, they form these collaborative relationships with the benevolent spirits to help maintain health and balance within themselves, their community, and the web of life. The traditional job of a shaman is to help his or her clan stay in right alignment with the forces of nature and spirit. Pretty simple. The skill and efficacy of the shaman was an essential ingredient to the well-being and survival of his or her clan. What I mean is sometimes it was as simple as, where are we going to make camp for the winter? What's going to be a safe winter camp for my people? Do I go here, here, here? Where are the buffalo? Where is my food sources in a migratory culture, moving around, following the herds, following the natural flow of rhythm of nature, and living in a way that is in tune and close to the earth in that way. Well, the shaman's job was very important. Okay, they had to be in tune, and so did every hunter, every gatherer, and everybody else who was a part of that society, that clan group. Okay, so there's something called the hollow bone, and maybe some of you have heard that expression. What the hollow bone means is that the shaman acts as a bridge, an intermediary. A hollow bone is a conduit of the spirit world. So we as shaman rarely use our own energy. Okay. The skill is in making the connection to the spirit world with the benevolent helping spirits, releasing any bias, any self-importance, any of the noise that comes with my thinking mind, right? Any of my stuff that might interfere with the clarity of my sight, and allowing the benevolent spirits, helpers, to work through me or work through you. Okay, so what that means is that a shaman is not sitting up there going, I am the healer. No, you're not really doing much. I mean, you're doing something, certainly, right? You're holding the doorway open. You're holding the doorway open for these other forces. And you're doing a lot to create trust, to build a safe environment, to hold space. But when the actual healing happens, you step back, you're a facilitator. That's all you are. Okay, you're opening the door, you're letting the energy, the life force energy and the spiritual energy flow through you as needed to help whoever is there seeking your help. By getting out of the way, personally, it allows it to flow more freely. Okay. So a shaman will often sing, dance, and drum to help silence the thinking mind, because it's only after we've silenced our logical thinking mind that the spirits can work through us. Okay, this is what we call stopping the internal dialogue. Now, I want to talk a little bit about consciousness and our perception of reality. Physical flesh reality, that's where we are right now in our bodies, is sometimes called ordinary reality because that is the reality that we experience in the physical world on a day-to-day basis when we're in normal waking consciousness. When we're awake, walking around, most of us are experiencing physical flesh reality. Our experiences in physical flesh reality are governed by the laws of Newtonian physics. In other words, you drop your keys, they're going to fall to the ground. Gravity is in play. You try to fly, don't try to fly without an airplane. Please don't jump off the building and go, I'm going to fly. No, you're not. Your physical body's going to crash. Your spirit might very well fly, but your physical body is going to crash. Don't do that. Okay. Um, the dream time or spirit reality, which sometimes is referred to as non-ordinary reality, are aspects of reality not bound by the constraints of the physical world. Here, you can fly, you can swim underwater, you can do all sorts of stuff, you can ride on your pet dragon, whatever you want, okay? Nothing's going to happen to your physical body if you fly, just like in a dream, right? We've all had, I think a lot of us have had dreams where we've flown in our physical body. We're like flying over the land or riding on it. You know, I had a dream when I was flying on an eagle one time. That was so cool. Then I woke up, I'm like, oh, it's a bummer. Can't do that. Okay. This is the dream time or spirit reality. We experience these realities in states of consciousness that are distinctly different from ordinary waking consciousness, such as when we have an intuitive awareness, dreams, hallucinations, psychosis, etc., etc. Okay, so when you see somebody who has unfortunately not gotten the mental health care that they need, and they're maybe in a bad state and they're talking to some things that aren't there, okay, or that you can't see. And they're obviously in a high state of need. They're not able to manage their day-to-day physical reality. What's happened to these people is they've gone too far over to the dream time and they're unable to come back. They're unable to close that door. So they're unable to function in normal waking reality. And this is really important to understand, that we have to always maintain that balance to be able to stay grounded and rooted in our physical day-to-day so we can manage our day-to-day functionality in a high functioning way. That's what we want to do, right? And we don't want to be shut off to the spiritual awareness that is available to us. We want to be able to move back and forth between the two. So we can conjecture about the nature of quantum realities and the spirit world. We can conjecture about it with our logical mind in our physical flesh reality, and I can try my best to explain it to you, but we can only directly perceive and experience these realities when our brain waves pulsate at frequencies that allow us to enter the spirit reality of the dream time. Okay, so right now we're in a logic mind state, we're having a conversation, or I'm giving a lecture, okay? You can get it logically, but unless you switch brainwave states, you're not experiencing that. A little later on today, we're going to actually switch brainwave states and do a shamanic journey altogether. And then we can come back and share about that. So let's talk about entering the dream time. there have been a myriad variety of rituals that have been used across the eons, but by cultures, so many cultures, I can't even count them, to intentionally induce the brainwaves frequencies that allow us to enter the dream time and perceive the spirit world. Now, some people are naturally adept at that. I'm sure a number of you are highly intuitive and maybe naturally slip in and out of those states. Okay, if you weren't interested or potentially highly already intuitive, you probably wouldn't be on this call right now. Okay, there are specific methods, though, that allow us to refine those natural gifts. Some people, as I said, are more naturally adept at this skill than others, but everybody can learn it. All people can learn it. We don't need to be constrained by any given method or ritual, regardless of the custom dogma or current popularity. Okay, there's many ways to enter the state. What I'm going to teach you is one way that I find safe and highly effective. Okay, and learning to enter the dream time safely and effectively is the first and most fundamental step in learning shamanic spirit medicine. So let's talk about shamanic consciousness. Shamanic consciousness is a specific state of consciousness that's achieved when one enters the dream time to access spirit reality for a specific purpose. Shamanic consciousness is like lucid dreaming, but more easily accessible because we enter and leave shamanic consciousness at will during our waking hours. So it's something we do consciously. We use our logic mind to make the choice to go there. It's not something that happens accidentally to us. It's something that we choose. So we act to do it rather than it happening to us. And that gives us a lot of agency. And agency is important when we're working with spiritual development and growth. We never want to give up our agency. We never want to give up our free will. We want to always maintain our own ability to choose our own path of right relationship. We don't want to give that up to anybody else. We don't want any intermediaries, okay? Another distinction between shamanic consciousness and lucid dreaming is that when we purposefully enter shamanic consciousness, we do actually have far greater agency to act in alignment with our stated intent. In a lucid dream, we may know that we're dreaming, but we're often very limited in the degree to which we can control our actions and perform our conscious intentions within our dreams. Shamanic consciousness allows us the freedom to command our dreaming and to receive healing and guidance in accordance with specific, clarified intent. Shamanic consciousness gives us the agency to control our actions to the same degree as we control our actions in normal waking conscious reality, except we're doing that in spirit reality. So how cool is that? You're in a dream and you have the same amount of agency and conscious control over your own actions as you do in regular waking life. That's amazing, okay? Because that allows us the ability to reprogram ourselves for a deep level of healing on a limbic system level that can't be done through affirmations or things like that. In neither lucid dreaming nor shamanic consciousness do we control the actions of others. We're not able to. And this is what distinguishes these states of perception from fantasy. Okay, in a fantasy or a daydream, we control both our own actions and the actions of the other beings that we imagine in our creation. That's very different than shamanic consciousness or lucid dreaming. We're not creating what's out there. We're perceiving what's out there in a different state of consciousness. That's very different than having a fantasy where we're creating everything. Trust me, when you meet your power animals and they straighten you out about where you may be acting in a way that you think you're doing everything great, and then your power animal goes, oh no, Scott, you were in the wrong there. First of all, it's humbling. And second of all, it's not a fantasy. That's not your fantasy, right? Your fantasy isn't to be told, hey, you're out of line, boy. Okay, that's not my fantasy. Maybe it's somebody else's. It's certainly not mine, okay? So this happens to everybody. Okay, we go through this process at first because we've been so conditioned to deny this other part of our existence, right? Our logic mind has is so dominant in Western society, in modern society. Our logic minds are so dominant that when we have experiences of our spirit mind, our logic mind immediately tries to rationalize them and take control of them again. But when we shut that down and we're able to silence the internal dialogue and quiet the logic mind, then we can actually access spiritual awareness. So it's normal at times for people to have self-doubt around, am I making this up? Right? You're only making it up if you're thinking. Okay? That's when it becomes a fantasy, when you start thinking about it. Fantasies are logic mind creations. They're not spirit mind creations. Okay? In a shamanic journey, what we're perceiving are aspects of reality that already exist, regardless of whether we observe them or not. Okay? We're not creating those aspects of reality, and we certainly don't control them. Okay? So you guys, from all over the world here on this call. Okay, I can't open your door and look outside and see what's there, but it's still there. Okay, I'm not creating it, but if I saw it, I wouldn't be creating it. It's the same thing in the spirit world. If I were to travel in the spirit world and to observe what was happening in the spirit world around you, I wouldn't be creating that. I would just be observing what's there. The same as if I flew over to where you were and took a look through my physical eyes. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? How we distinguish? Okay, great. So inducing shamanic consciousness. How do we get there? How do we silence the logic thinking mind, silence the internal dialogue, and shift into shamanic consciousness? So shamanic consciousness can be induced voluntarily through various techniques. Shamans and apprentices across cultures and the ages have used the following methods to effectively induce shamanic consciousness, and other ones, but these are some of the most common ones. Drumming or other musical instruments to induce a rhythmic trance. So that could be a drum, it could be the yadaki, which is the didgeridoo, it could be a flute, it could be a singing bowl, it could be clapsticks, it could be a rattle, it could be chanting. Okay, so it's basically rhythmic entrainment. Fasting, sweat lodge or nipi, entheogenic preparations, meditation, and combinations of the above. So for example, traditionally, you might fast for a couple of days and go into a sweat lodge where there's drumming and meditation, and some people might even ingest certain plants in order to help induce those states. None of that is, you don't have to do that. Okay, you don't have to ingest any psychotropic substances in order to induce a shamanic consciousness state. It is just one of the ways that it has been done over time through some cultures. Most cultures don't actually use plants or psychoactive plants to do that. Most cultures use some form of drum or musical trance and meditation. Okay. Or fasting, like on a vision quest. Okay. To navigate the spirit world effectively with longevity and ongoing vitality and groundedness, okay, we must command our ability to enter shamanic consciousness at will and return to waking consciousness at will as easily as possible and with as little strain as possible on our physical body. So for me, drumming and meditation are the two methods which are least strenuous on our physical body. Okay, I can't imagine, I journey every day, sometimes twice a day, sometimes more than twice a day if I'm doing a number of sessions or teaching. Okay, I couldn't imagine having to take ayahuasca 3 times a day. That would just not work. Oh, sorry, I can't get my kid at school today. I'm not able to drive. Okay, so there's another way that we can apply this in modern daily life. Okay, understanding that the cultures from which some of these psychotropic substances came from where these entheogenic substances were used, were set up completely differently. Nobody had to show up at their job at 9 a.m. Monday morning under fluorescent lights. And everybody who was traditionally exposed to that had been for years raised within the culture of learning how to communicate with the spirits of the plant and working with the spirits without ingesting it for years as little kids. Okay, so that's something where, if you're interested, I wrote an article on shamanism without ayahuasca that goes into a lot more detail about that and why it's not necessarily a great match for us in modern day-to-day life. Okay, so I prefer drumming and rhythmic trance to meditation because it blocks out the distractions from the outer world and the inner world, meaning my wandering mind or the neighbor's barking dog get blocked out very easily while I'm drumming. It also energizes our trance. Now, my daughter, who has been learning shamanic journeying since she was 4 or 5 years old, would say to me, Dad, it's just so distracting when you drum. Do you have to drum? Why do you need that? I can just do it by quieting my mind, which is great. But, and I tell her, well, I wasn't raised the way you were, so I need the drum as a crutch to turn my mind, my thinking mind off. But she's able to just switch back and forth without any type of rhythmic entrainment. But I believe most human beings would be able to do that if we'd been trained that way since we were little kids. Now, I'll talk a little bit about the brainwave states. And this is the brainwave states explains how someone like my daughter is able to switch so quickly between states, whereas someone like myself needs the drum in order to help me switch and entrain. Okay, so scientists measure brainwaves on a continuum of frequency and classify them according to the type of mental states associated with certain regions of frequency. There are 5 main brainwave states. The more active the brainwave frequency, the more energy is required to maintain its functioning. And higher frequencies maintained for extended periods of time result in stress and depletion. Okay, so we can't be in high brainwave states for an extended period of time because we run out of glucose, basically. Changes in brainwave states correspond to changes in nervous system function. That's a fact. That's a scientific fact. When our brainwave changes, our nervous system function changes. In adults, our normal waking frequency is about 8 hertz and higher, which is alpha state, beta state, or gamma state, which is the highest brainwave state. In children, normal waking frequencies of 7 hertz or less. So children are more naturally often in theta state. Okay, so they're children. This is why, at least until about the age of 10, it's a lot easier to teach children shamanic journeying than when they get older because they're already naturally in that state. And this is why children are so prone to fantasy, because they're having these spirit mind experiences, but then they don't have a context within which to understand or comprehend those experiences. And so then their thinking mind takes over and starts making stuff up. Okay, and the veil is very thin for young children. Aspects of reality that we're consciously aware of are determined by our brainwave state. Okay, so the brainwave state determines what we perceive. We think that we perceive what's in front of us, but that's not actually accurate. You could put 3 people in the same room looking at the exact same thing, and they will describe 3 different things. There will certainly be similarities, but the differences in perspective and filters and the brainwave states that they're in will change what they perceive. And if one of them is in theta state and the other one is in beta state, like in a fight or flight state, okay, they're going to perceive 2 completely separate worlds. And I'm sure we've had experiences like that where we're having conversations with someone and we're saying one thing and they're saying something else, and it's like we're having 2 separate conversations. You ever had that experience, right? And it's like, oh, okay, wait, we're not really connecting right now. Part of that is that one of the people there might be in fight or flight. Okay, one of them might be experiencing some PTSD, and they're seeing something completely different. They're having a completely different experience than we are if they're having a PTSD experience. Okay, so what that means is we perceive reality differently in different brainwave states. It doesn't mean reality has changed. It means that our way of looking at it has changed. Okay, so delta state. Delta state is from 0.5 to 4 hertz, and that is when we're in deep sleep. And what happens in delta state is the brain and nervous system rests and recovers. We recoup our energy levels, and our nervous system regenerates in brainwaves, in delta state. Okay, that's really important because our nervous system regenerating, a lot of times when you experience a deep healing, you might want to just go to sleep after the healing. Honor that. Please honor that. Okay, that is your body saying, I need to go into delta state right now in order to regrow and regenerate certain nerves and nervous system connections. Okay. Anabolic hormones that repair tissues and stabilize our energy levels are released, and new neurons grow and new neural connections form in delta state. So that's really important. This is why babies sleep so much. The babies in delta state, when they're sleeping so deeply, they are forming new neural connections, new neural pathways. So when we have a deep healing, if we're going to fully integrate it and we feel like sleeping, by all means, honor that, because that's when these new neural pathways are growing, the neurons are growing, the neural connections are forming. Okay? It's an indication your nervous system is recovering from a deeply held trauma, and your brain is creating the new neural pathways to help you integrate the healing if you feel to fall into a deep sleep after receiving a shamanic healing. Okay, that's a clear indication, and honor that. Okay, so theta state is from 4 to 8 hertz. Theta state is the spirit mind. It's where the spirit mind is. It's where we do shamanic journeying. Theta is a deeply relaxed, creative, and meditative state, often inwardly focused, We embody our innate healing and self-healing abilities in theta state. Theta frequency brainwaves allow us to unleash our creativity and find novel solutions to old problems. In other words, our logic mind has been tossing it over and over and over and over, and we haven't been able to figure out the solutions. And then we enter theta state, and all of a sudden we have a solution that we weren't able to see before. Okay. It's kind of like walking away from the puzzle, and then you come back a few hours later and you're like, oh yeah, that piece goes right there. Okay, kind of like that. Both dreaming and shamanic journeying occur in theta state. Theta state is induced by rhythmic movement, repetitive rhythmic sound, such as shamanic drumming. The body has to be relaxed in order to enter theta state. That's why we center ourselves with practices like meditation or taking a relaxing walk in nature. It's synergistic and supportive of shamanic journeying. It's very hard to go straight from a, intense workday and perhaps a tension-inducing experience to a shamanic journey. Doesn't really work out that well. Okay. In theta state, healing that is visualized in the brain travels down the nerves and affects physical changes in bodily tissue by stimulating corresponding regenerative healing responses. Now, I think that's really cool, okay, because that is the mind-body connection right there, okay? The thing is, it only works in theta state. This is why saying affirmations, oh, I'm healing my hand, doesn't actually work. Okay. But in theta state, when we perceive things with a spirit mind and we can see things from a different perspective. Okay. Healing that is visualized in our brain actually travels down our nerves and affects physical changes in our body tissue and stimulates corresponding regenerative healing responses. To me, that's the coolest thing about all this. That right there is just the coolest thing. Appreciate that, read that statement again, or listen to that statement again, and appreciate the immense power of shamanism. Visualization works, but it only works effectively when we're in the shamanic state of consciousness. It only works effectively when we're in theta state. It doesn't work when we're in other brainwave states. Now there's alpha state, which is a calm, centered awareness of 8 to 12 hertz frequency. Alpha state is associated with relaxation, passive attention, reflection, and learning. It's metacognition, where we see the big picture. That's what happens in alpha state. We get a seeing the big picture. We develop a relaxed conscious awareness of ourselves, the world around us, and our place within us. This is why when I teach, I recommend that after your journey, you take the time to journal and to write about what you experienced in your journey. Because you will move up, you'll upcycle after your journey from theta to alpha state. Unless you need to go to sleep, then just go to sleep, okay? And when you upcycle from theta to alpha state, you enter into a state of metacognition, so you can see the big picture. You can see how that healing or guidance that you just experienced now fits into the big picture of your life, of yourself, the world around you, and your place within it. By taking in the full picture of events and placing them in appropriate context, we're then able to think more strategically, to learn, to make accurate assessments, and take effective actions. In other words, we stepped out of that overthinking, overprocessing type of experience, and now we're able to have a completely different perspective on things and take new actions, effective actions. Our body is calm when we're in alpha state. We're relaxed. Alpha state is the bridge between the physical and the spirit worlds. Okay, it's between the bridge between the physical mind and the spirit mind, or the logic mind and the spirit mind. It's that in-between state. Okay. When we begin a shamanic journey, we're going to relax into alpha state before we start, and then we transition into theta state during the journey. This is what most ritual and ceremony is about in a religious or spiritual context. This is why we sing or we dance. It's to help us get into, and repetitive ritual helps us get into this relaxed state of being that then signals to us that we're going to transition soon into theta state to have spiritual experiences. When we return from a shamanic journey and take time to journal, we transition back from theta state to alpha state, where we can recapitulate our experiences in the dream time and assimilate what we've learned and integrate our healing. Okay, and now I'll talk a little bit about beta state, which is from 12 to 40 hertz. This is our analytical thinking, our logic mind. Beta state is narrowly focused and often anxiety dominant, but that doesn't mean it doesn't serve a purpose, okay? We don't want to discard it completely, because there are tasks and abilities that are available to us in beta state, and it's supposed to be that way. We're supposed to be able to narrow our focus at times. It's important to be able to narrow our focus at times. We just don't want to be that way all the time. Okay, so this shamanic spirit medicine and shamanic journeying is about gaining our freedom to choose what state of being that we're going to be in, what brainwave states we're going to be in, how we're going to perceive the world. Okay, this is a lot about our personal sovereignty, our spiritual sovereignty, and our freedom. Okay, so beta state is subdivided into three categories that are characterized as follows. So low beta state, which is 12 to 15 hertz, is quiet, focused, introverted concentration. Okay, that's, hey, I'm working on my taxes right now, but I'm not stressed about it, or I'm doing my accounting. Okay. Mid beta state is from 15 to 18 hertz, which is a higher performance state, but it's also a higher stress state. It's also higher stress. Okay. And high beta is from 18 to 40 hertz, which is when we're in fight or flight, PTSD, or freeze or fawn, paranoia, panic, stress, anxiety, those not pleasant states of consciousness that sometimes we go there. Beta state requires substantial amounts of mental and physical energy to sustain. That's why if you've ever experienced being in a fight or flight state afterwards, you're very tired. It's exhausting because you might be in that state for a while and then afterwards you're like, and you can't really do anything. You just need to rest. Okay. A balanced amount of beta waves allow us to consciously maintain narrow focus on individual tasks and helps with detailed problem solving. So balanced amount is good. If we have excess, that's anxiety, stress, and inability to relax, fight, flight, fawn, freeze, PTSD. Unfortunately, this is where most of modern society lives most of the time, is in mid to high beta state. Okay, it's intense and it's not particularly pleasant or healthy. Deficient beta waves, which is also somewhat common, is daydreaming, depression, poor cognition, and can lead to ADHD and inability to focus. Well, gee, do you ever think that maybe the deficiency comes from the excess? That excess creates deficiency? That if someone is subject at a young age to a lot of excess fight or flight, that then eventually their body becomes sort of normal, that becomes normalized, and then they just can't really go there anymore, that they become depleted, and then they have a hard time focusing, and they bounce around between that state of high anxiety, PTSD, and then an inability to focus and ADHD. That happens. That's actually quite common. Okay. So gamma state is a peak performance state of 40 to 100 hertz. Now, gamma state is only sustainable for brief periods of time. It's like a burst of heightened awareness, okay? A burst of sudden insight. Remaining in the zone of peak performance for extended periods of time requires a combination of theta, alpha, and gamma states. Okay, it's a combination. You cannot remain in the zone in gamma state for hours on end. It's impossible. We don't have enough glucose. We don't have enough energy to do that. So it comes in these bursts of insight, and then we come down and we maybe journal. Okay, and then we get another burst of insight and we journal or relax or integrate that. Okay, consciously training ourselves to enter in and out of shamanic consciousness boosts our predisposition towards peak performance and leads to creative insights, effective action, and problem solving. Okay, when we undertake this course of study and personal training and development, we are able to shift into these states much more easily. We're able to shift out of a state we don't want to be in, like a fight or flight state. We learn freedom. We learn how to control the brain waves as they move through our system. We learn how to gain our spiritual sovereignty. And that's hugely important because then we don't get tempted to buy into all the drama that's out there. There's a reason there's a lot of drama, because it's an effective tool for hooking people's attention. Okay. And if we allow it to hook our attention and we buy into it and we start to react emotionally to that, then where are we? We're not in control of our brainwave states. We're moving into high beta state, and that disempowers us. Okay. There's a good reason to be learning this type of work and learning how to work in this way to help ourselves. So now I want to talk about shamanic cosmology. Generally, in most cultures, we talk about four worlds. There are four worlds. There's a world of flesh and physical reality, and the world of spirit. And the world of spirit is divided into three worlds: the upper world, the middle world, and the lower world. So you have the physical flesh reality world, and then you have the spirit world of the upper world, middle world, and lower world. Physical flesh reality exists only in the middle world. That's the only place it exists. Okay. Aspects of spirit reality also exist in the middle world. There is also something called the upper and lower world, and the upper and lower worlds are purely spiritual. The upper and lower worlds exist exclusively in spirit reality. There is no physical parallel to the upper and lower worlds. We perceive these worlds by entering the dream time. Okay? As I said, there's no physical flesh reality aspect to the upper and lower world. In the upper and lower worlds, life-affirming, compassionate, and healing spirits reside exclusively. Okay? So in the upper and lower world, exclusively life-affirming, compassionate, healing spirits reside there. Spirits residing in the upper and lower world are benevolent and wise spirits that we can work with in order to bring healing and guidance to ourselves, others, and the web of life. There are no parasitic forces in the upper or lower world. That doesn't exist there. It only exists in the middle world. So what that means is that all beings that one encounters in the upper and lower worlds are truthful and life-affirming. So you can trust and have faith in the information that you receive in the upper and lower world. The upper and lower worlds are safe spaces to receive deep and profound personal healing. It's important that when we go on this deep level, that we do so in a safe space, Okay, we want to have that safe space for healing. The middle world spirits are not exclusively life-affirming nor trustworthy in the same manner of upper and lower world spirits. Okay. Middle world spirits can be helpful or protective. And there are also middle world spirits that are parasitic. They may be lost, wandering, mischievous, or even malicious. Okay. It's just a mirror of flesh reality, or I should say our physical flesh reality is a mirror of what's happening in the spirit reality of the middle world. Some middle world spirits may be protectors of a specific people, culture, or place, but hostile to most outsiders, especially those who do not ask permission or walk with humility or pay respect when entering a spiritually active area. Okay? It's important to ask for permission when we go to a spiritually active area. Okay, that's an important thing to do. Venturing into the spiritual domain of middle world requires significant discernment in a comparable manner to navigating a large and foreign city in physical flesh reality. Okay, you don't go walk around in the middle of Times Square with wads of $100 bills hanging out of your back pocket going, hey, can you help me? Right? That'd be a naive thing to do. Okay, we're not going to do that. And we don't do that in the spirit world either. Okay, it requires the same amount of discernment. It's not a place to idly dabble, to open oneself to whatever arises, or to invoke random spirits for fun. Okay, no Ouija boards, please. No Ouija boards. Okay, not, oh, a spirit talked to me. Great, what kind of spirit? When somebody says that to me, I go, what kind of spirit talked to you? Right? We want to be clear about that. The diversity of temperaments and agendas in physical flesh reality reflects a similar diversity of these qualities in the spiritual sphere of the middle world. But that is different than in the upper and lower world. In the upper and lower world, all trustworthy, all life-affirming, all benevolent. That's why when we start this work with shamanic spirit medicine, we start working in the lower world and the upper world, and we don't work in the middle world until we get into 3 of our advanced training. Following guidance and refining our understanding. Please always follow the techniques and guidance given to you by benevolent spirits in the upper and lower worlds when you're doing shamanic journey work. It's much more powerful than following a technique, quote, by the book or by what you learn from a human teacher. Okay, so benevolent spirits are the ultimate authority in shamanic healing. If you receive guidance from power animal, spirit teacher, benevolent ancestor or other spirit helper in the upper or lower world to do something differently than the way that I teach it, please, by all means, follow that guidance as long as you're sure that you're in the upper or lower world. This isn't about creating a hierarchy. This is about helping you access your direct connection to the spirit world safely and effectively. Okay? It's very important. Follow that guidance when you get it directly. Okay? That does not apply to spirits encountered in the middle world. Safely interacting with middle world spirits requires significant experience and discernment. It's helpful to remember that in the upper and lower worlds, every spirit being that one encounters must tell the truth, so you can safely ask for guidance and help in the upper and lower worlds. Allow the spirits to guide and teach you. So for example, you can ask a question like, are you my power animal? Or what am I to learn from this image that I'm seeing in my journey? The answer you receive will be truthful and accurate. You can also ask things about other people, like what is the intention of this person in this situation, if you're not sure, and you'll get a good read on what's happening in your interpersonal life. Okay. The place where we have to refine our abilities when journeying to the upper and lower worlds is in our understanding of the spiritual communications that we receive to ensure that we don't misinterpret the message. Okay, understanding that which is being communicated to us from the spirit world requires that we continue to build and refine our personal language of spirit. Most of us weren't born into cultures and families that pass down an established language for communicating with the spirit world, right? Okay, it wasn't like mom and dad were telling you what happens in the spirit world. Far from it, right? Far from it. Didn't even exist. They probably lived, if your parents are like mine, they lived exclusively in flesh, physical flesh reality. All that other stuff was weirdo stuff. Okay. Um, so we have to learn to develop and refine that ability and develop that language of communication for ourselves. Along with learning how to journey to the upper and lower world, learning the process of developing your personal language of spirit is one of the core objectives of my level 1 Fundamentals of Shamanism class. That's what we work on. That's one of the main things we work on in level 1. Learning how to develop that language of communication and understanding, and that way you can have faith in what you perceive. And please note that when we perceive, some of us are highly visual. You may see, quote, see, but other people are more feelers, like kinesthetic, or clairsentient. You just know, you get a knowing. And some people are highly auditory. They go in and they hear things in the spirit world. Most of us have a combination of more than one of those four, sometimes all four of those ways of receiving information. But you want to do a little self-reflection before we journey and ask yourself, what is the way that my intuition shows up? Am I kinesthetic? Am I visual? Am I auditory? Am I claircognizant? Because your journey most likely will mirror how your intuition works. And so if you're a kinesthetic person, don't torture yourself saying, I don't see anything when I journey. Okay, that's torture. You're not going to, because you're going to feel it. Okay, now in running classes for a good long while now with many, many groups, it always breaks down in my class where there's somebody who's like, I didn't see anything. I'm like, what did you feel? I just felt fur, but I'm not sure if I knew what it was. I'm like, well, go back there and ask the question, what am I feeling? And then they come back and they tell me exactly what it was. In the same class, there is somebody who is describing to me a visual that could be a Hollywood blockbuster movie with incredible visual detail. Okay, neither one is better. It's just the way we perceive. Okay, one isn't better than the other. In the beginning, the visual is a little easier to trust because as descendants of monkeys, if you believe that we were descendants of monkeys, our visual sight was needed to make sure that we weren't going to be eaten by a predator approaching on the plains, coming to our little hideout where our band of 40 or 60 monkeys was. Oh, there's a lion. We got to go. Okay, so that's why we're visually dominant as a species. Okay, but so it's easier to trust in the beginning when you get visuals in your journeys. However, it's not always useful in the end because sometimes we see a lot of visuals, but we don't know what they mean and we can misinterpret. So please don't torture yourself trying to get a vision if you're not a visual person. Go with your feelings, go with what you're hearing, go with what you're knowing. Okay, if that's the way that you naturally receive this type of information. Traveling and navigating the spirit world. The techniques for traveling to and in the spirit world and then returning to our physical body in flesh reality when our work is complete are fundamental to the effective practice of shamanism. In other words, if you can't move to and from between the spirit world and the physical world, you're not practicing shamanism. It's not happening. The upper and lower worlds, as I said, are exclusively non-physical. Therefore, we have to adjust our concept of space and time in order to effectively understand the landscape of the upper and lower worlds. When we navigate flesh reality in the physical world, we find direction along the surface of the physical earth. I'm going north, I'm going east, I'm turning left, I'm turning right. The spirit world is much more like the matrix of a dream space where the rules of physical reality do not bind us. When we travel in the spirit world, we do so by focusing our intent and asking our benevolent spirit helpers to escort us or direct us to our desired destination. So in other words, if I want to go check in on my mom who lives 5,000 miles away from me, I don't have to actually think about how to navigate there from Hawaii to the East Coast of the United States. Okay, I don't need to do that. In fact, doing that would be detrimental because I start thinking about it. I just set the intention of, I want to take a look at what's happening with my mom to make sure that she's okay. Check in on her. Okay, and then boom, I get transported. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to navigate. I don't have to, there's no GPS needed, no maps needed. Okay. Don't be surprised during your shamanic journey if you discover that you can fly, that you can breathe underwater, or otherwise travel in ways that would be impossible in flesh reality. This is a normal part of navigating the spirit world. And oftentimes in my classes, I get somebody who says, oh my God, I was journeying, I was under the water, and then I started thinking, I can't be underwater, I need to breathe, and then my journey ended. Don't do that to yourself. Okay, please don't do that to yourself. Don't think it. Just understand it's okay. It's your spirit body. It's your physical body is there in your room, still breathing air. You're fine. Okay. So what's a power animal? A power animal is a benevolent spirit that helps to connect us with the spirit world, like a guide. Power animals serve as guides, protectors, and helpers on our shamanic journeys. Power animals are the spiritual form of an animal species. They're not the spirit of a specific individual from that species. So in other words, a specific individual of that species, like a beloved pet that's passed to the spirit world, can still serve as a spiritual protector or guide, but they're distinct from a power animal in that they're an individual rather than the collective spirit. So power animal is bear, not that bear that I saw the other day. Well, there are no bears in Hawaii, but you get the idea. Okay. This is an important distinction. Also, understand that some spiritual beings have a physical manifestation in flesh reality and others don't. Okay, so some things exist, they have counterparts, like bear spirit has physical bears, but there are other spirits out there that don't have any physical counterparts. Okay, that's why there's a lot of legends about animals, or they're called therianthropes. Okay, half animal, half human, or a combination of animal, like a griffin or a Pegasus or a dragon. Okay. There are no, or a Sasquatch, for example. Okay. There are, Sasquatch is a little different, but there are no physical correspondence to those other spiritual animals that are out there. Okay. But some of them do, like bears and, eagles and everything that we see in the web of life also has a spiritual aspect to it, just as humans do. Okay. Power animals exist regardless of whether we're in conscious communication with them or not. Okay, they're there. Just like you're there even before I met you today. Okay, conscious communication with our power animals and expressing gratitude to them enhances our connection and increases the protection we receive. Okay, just like anything else, we're building a collaborative relationship. If you build a collaborative relationship with another human, okay, then they're more likely to show up for you when you ask for help. That's how it is, right? You build a collaborative relationship, you become friends, you develop that relationship over time, that relationship becomes stronger, the bonds of trust become stronger, they show up. Well, it's the same thing in the spirit world. If we build a collaborative relationship and we're in regular conscious communication with our power animals, then they show up for us. Okay. And we give agency to the benevolent intent of bringing the web of life back into balance because these spirits can't act directly on the physical plane. They need humans to do it for them. Okay, so that's our job. That's how we balance it out. Okay, it's a balanced relationship. However, power animals do not require patronage. Okay, you do not need to tithe a percentage of your income to your power animal. That is not, it's not appropriate. Okay, just understanding that it's about building a collaborative relationship. When we communicate regularly with our power animals, it's easier to achieve clear guidance and healing because other interfering energies are less likely to cloud our perception. Okay, there's less static on the line, there's less noise. So animal spirit medicines. If someone has bear as a power animal, we would say that they have bear medicine. We can have a multitude of power animals that surround and protect us, and different animal spirits may serve different roles in our journeys. Some may function as guides, some as protectors, and some may assist us in doing healing session work. As we proceed in the journey of life, when we consciously work with diverse types of spirit animals and learn to integrate their teachings, medicine, and wisdom in their lives, we will acquire more power animals. That's part of the path. In our level 2 training, which is shamanic self-mastery, we learn and to work with and cultivate relationship with 10 different types of animal spirit medicines. And then that's a template for you to continue that work on your own. Okay. Ritual and ceremony are a traditional part of cultures and spiritual practice. In addition to the preservation of cultural traditions and wisdom, the primary purpose of ritual and ceremony is to signal to the practitioner that it's time to shift consciousness, to shift awareness from the world of day-to-day flesh reality to the world of spirit, to transition from the logic mind to the spirit mind. In neuroscience terms, ritual and ceremony signal to our brains that it's time to downcycle from beta to alpha state in preparation for entering theta state. Repetition of specific ceremonies over time will automatically trigger the downcycle response. It becomes a habit. Okay. The Fundamentals of Shamanism course helps you develop the ability to transition between the logic and spirit mind as quickly and easily as possible with the minimum amount of external pageantry as possible. We try to be simple and efficient and direct. We don't want to complicate things. We don't want to put a lot of jargon in there. We want to work directly, understand what we're doing so that you can be empowered by the process. We can respect, and we should respect, the traditions of the myriad cultures that emphasize ritual and ceremony and allow each practitioner to practice in his or her own way and simultaneously embody a clear understanding of the purpose of ritual while moving towards the most direct, time-efficient, and effective practice that we can develop for ourselves. Starting your journey, starting your shamanic journey, you're going to pick a starting point. I want you to pick a place in nature, a place that you have visited before in physical flesh reality. Choose a place that invites a downward feeling and will serve as an opening to the lower world, such as a cave, a spring, a lake, the hollow of a tree. You'll leave from the same point each time that you journey to your lower world, to the lower world. So everybody, please take a moment now and think about a place that you have been in physical reality, in nature, that invites you to serve as an opening to the lower world. When the drumming starts, you're going to lie down in a comfortable place where you'll be undisturbed. Cover your eyes with an eye pillow, and you're going to use your intent to move with your spirit mind to your starting point. Once the drumming starts, you start your descent to the lower world by looking for a tunnel or tube going down from your starting point. If, as you go down, the tunnel splits, please take the tunnel or the path that leads downwards. And then you're continue to the end of the tunnel and exit outdoors. Once you exit the tunnel, you're in the lower world. Okay? During your journey, the tunnel acts as your energetic and psychic protection as you journey through the middle world. The tunnel is a guideline so that you don't get lost or sidetracked or distracted along your way. Once you exit the tunnel, you're going to be most likely in the lower world. So please confirm that you're in the lower world before proceeding. So you exit the tunnel at the bottom and you ask, am I in the lower world? If you receive the answer of yes, then proceed with the intention of your journey. If you receive a no, ask to be taken or guided to the lower world and continue until you receive confirmation that you are in the lower world, or jump back into your tunnel and keep going down. For today's journey, the intention is to meet your power animal and receive healing. The more you focus on your intent, the easier it will be for you to journey. If while you're journeying, you start thinking, lose your focus, get confused, just go back to the last place that you remember clearly in your journey and restate your intention. I'm intending to go to the lower world to meet my power animal and receive the healing. What you're doing is you're learning to command your dreaming attention. It's a practice, so please be kind to yourself and understand that your ability to command your dreaming will develop over time. Talked about this a little bit before. I want to reiterate it because it's so important. There are multiple ways to receive information in both the spirit and physical worlds: sight, sound, feeling, and knowing. Embrace the form of communication that comes most naturally to you. Different individuals are more predisposed to certain ways of receiving information. Just because someone is more visual when they journey doesn't mean that their experience is more authentic, or their healing is deeper, or that they're more skilled. Visual experiences can be validating at first because we're a predominantly visual species. They might be easier to accept, but it doesn't make them better in any way. When we develop the confidence in our own unique way of communicating with the spirit world, we'll achieve a dramatic sense of grounding and self-trust. After our journey, we always return fully to our physical flesh reality. We want to return to our body. It's essential that we learn to walk in both the world of flesh and the world of spirit. This is how we train ourselves to shift gracefully and at will between physical reality and the dream time. We don't want to limit ourselves to one or the other. We are learning to command our dreaming so we can gain true freedom. When you hear the callback signal on the drum, finish what you're doing in your journey and begin your return to your physical body. The way you return is by reversing the path that you traveled, recollecting the events of your journey along the way, and then once you're back at the top of your tunnel in the middle world at your starting point, you return to your body here now in present time in flesh reality and ground back into your body. When you return from your journey, you're shifting your consciousness up from theta state to alpha state. Immediately after returning from your journey, take a moment, please, and record your experiences by writing them down in a journal that you've reserved exclusively for recording your shamanic journeys or notes about shamanic spirit medicine. Please, when you write it down, write down your exact experiences as if you were a video recorder recording it. Don't conflate your interpretation of your experiences with your actual experience. If you have an interpretation or question about what you experienced, please mark that clearly as your own interpretation or question, and then you can journey again later to answer your question or determine if your interpretation is correct. So the way that looks like is you write in the notebook, I experienced this, I experienced that, I saw this, I felt this, and I think that means ABC. And you put a little star on there because that's your thinking mind thinking what it might mean. Okay? If instead of thinking that, if you were told by your power animal it meant ABC, then yes, then my power animal told me that. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So now we're going to do our journey. We're going to journey to the lower world to meet your power animal. Please find a place where you're comfortable, laying down or sitting up, whatever is comfortable, anywhere where your body is comfortable and relaxed. The intent of your first journey is to travel to the lower world, meet your power animal, and receive a healing. Follow the instructions above and begin your journey. Okay, so you're going to journey down through the tunnel. Once out of the tunnel, ask, am I in the lower world? When you've confirmation that you're in the lower world, call out and ask for your power animal to meet you. When you sense, i.e. see, hear, feel, or know that there's something near you, ask, are you my power animal? If the answer is yes, thank your power animal for being there for you and ask to receive a healing from your power animal. If the answer is no, ask whomever you encounter to take you or direct you to your power animal and repeat that process until you meet your power animal and it acknowledges positively that it is your power animal. Once you've met your power animal, thank your power animal for being there and ask to receive a healing from your power animal. Once you hear the callback, please return to flesh reality by reversing your path, entering the bottom of the tunnel in the lower world, ascending the tunnel back to your starting point, and grounding back into your physical body. And then immediately after your journey, write down everything you experienced in your journal. Okay,